All right, everybody, welcome back to AYS Fight Club. I'm one half of your host, Daniel Dees. Alongside me, as always, is Matt Bricker. Matt, what is up?
Not much. Ready to get going.
We are. We got Justin Osborne standing by. But before we get to Justin, one quick special announcement. We are going to be having the first, well, not first, the inaugural AYS. What exactly are we calling this? We didn't really give it a name. It's an award.
AYS Fight Club 2020 MMA Awards.
Yeah, I want to call it the Fisties, but the Fisties just doesn't sound PG. It's not. All right, we'll come up with a name for it. Yeah, we're going to be giving out awards for the local promotions down south for pro fighter of the year, amateur fighter of the year, so on and so on and so on. So we're going to send this link out to camps and promotions all over. They'll push it. They'll give the fighters and the fans a chance to vote. Fight camps. They're going to vote on who they think is the fighter of the year, and so on and so on. So,
yeah,
Matt, anything you want?
Yeah, we'll put it out on the Are You Serious network page. We'll have fight of the year, fighter of the year, both pro and amateur. Fight team of the year, MMA organization of the year, submission of the year, KO of the year. So, we'll have all your typical categories. We'll put them all out poll style. You'll just, watch for the Are You Serious Sports Network page. Click the link. It'll take you to that one. We'll have all the nominees listed there. We'll have a nice little setup for each category.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. That's going to be a good one. It's going to happen at the end of the year, and can't wait to get fighters involved. We'll have to think of something to send them. So we'll get back to that at a later time, but let's go ahead and get to Justin Osborne. That's our guest for tonight. Let's get him up in here. There he is. Justin, what's up, man?
Oh, not much, just hanging out, man. How are you guys?
Doing good, man.
Good.
You're fighting out of Syndicate MMA in Vegas. That's correct, right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. So where were you originally at? Tell the fans. You're a local boy. Where were you at before you went to Syndicate?
So I started off at Port City. Well, at the time it was called Port City MMA, but now it's called Port City Kickboxing Academy in Mobile. And had a little stint in Colorado. Came back to Mobile for a little bit, but now I'm out in Vegas, and life's great.
All right. I've always wondered personally, when you go from your first gym ever, like, what's the difference between your first gym and then once you go to those big Vegas gyms or the gyms out west? What's it feel? Is it like a small fish going into a bigger pond, or just you're just going to a different aquarium, just sharpening your skills in other areas where they weren't sharp before? So what was that transition like?
It was all the same. To me, I'm just one of those guys where it's like anybody can get it, so it doesn't really matter. I'm ready for anything. I could train, and the training environment's great here. I have a lot of fun, and you can get a lot of. I think the only differences I would say would be it's a lot easier to get more looks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Rather than sometimes you're having to drive over to Mississippi or Florida to get some more looks. So it's good though.
Yeah. So anybody at Syndicate MMA sorry, you just froze up a little. Is there anybody at Syndicate MMA that you've developed a good bond with? Like, who's like your preferred training partner to spar with? Do you have any of those?
I'd say that I got Johnny Parsons. He actually fought on Icon in Biloxi a few months ago. And him and I always get good rounds, and we're always able to provide each other with good feedback and and give each other real advice. Like, there's not really of course you're going to be biased a little bit in your opinion on who won the rounds and stuff, but
yeah,
it's kind of like we have a good gentleman's agreement where it's like there's no hard feelings if I get hit with a good shot or something. You know what I mean? So we go hard, and the good thing about him is I gotta always be sharp when I go with him. And then Shane Shapiro, he's a very decorated jiu-jitsu black belt, And he's shown me a lot of good stuff on the ground, and really, him and his brother have really helped me fine tune the little details of my jiu-jitsu. Because everybody is always with jiu-jitsu, they always freak out about like the submissions and stuff, but it's always those little positions and transitions that make the biggest difference in terms of the grappling.
Yeah, there's actually a fighter in your camp who's jiu-jitsu who I've noticed as of late. That was Jordan Levitt, the Monkey King. He actually fights tomorrow, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he fights tomorrow. Yeah, his jiu-jitsu is sick.
Yeah, I've watched that. I think it was the Contender Series. I think he had like I want to say it was an arm bar or Kimura, something like that. But the dude was just
arm triangle.
Triangle, that's what it was. But like his ground game was smooth. So that's something that really jumped out at me. So when you said you're fighting out of Syndicate MMA, I was doing my research. I was like, wait, that's Jordan. So obviously you're getting some of that rub off of him. So you obviously grapple with him. So I like to assume you're getting some of that as well.
Yeah. We grapple a good amount. He's another great training partner to have because he's very unorthodox in his approach. So it's good because then when you face someone else who has an unorthodox approach, it doesn't spook you out or anything like that. It's like, oh, I've seen that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially with Monkey King right there. Like if people watching, if you got access to YouTube at the moment, as soon as you're done with this show, please, I highly recommend going and watching him. That's a fun fighter to watch. So, Justin, what do you have coming up?
Right now, nothing in particular. Just kind of sitting and waiting, I guess. I was able to get back into training a little bit this week. I had to heal up a little bit from that last fight. Had a little like I guess kind of a freak thing happen with a nerve in my elbow. So I had to kind of sit and wait for that to kind of clear up. But now I'm just training and just waiting for somebody to call my name again.
Hey, it'll happen. So here's something I've been meaning to ask some fighters we've been having on, but I never really got around to asking. With this whole pandemic coming on and training, has the pandemic impacted your training since it started?
Right now, everything's pretty much the same. I mean, I'm still able to go to the gym and all that stuff. I would say it was before when the lockdown restrictions were at its strictest. I was just going into a garage and getting some great training in, and it was just like, I mean, it was kind of like when you go into the garage. I mean, I don't know if you ever seen Mad Max, the Thunderdome, but that's basically what it was. So it was a good time. I mean, the intensity was high just because, I mean, there wasn't a lot of space to move. So you had to definitely bring it when you went in there.
I understand that. Matt, you got anything for Justin?
No, not at the moment. Definitely enjoyed your fight at Atlas. I got to call that one when you got that the submission win. So I don't really do a lot of the questions because y'all hear enough from me before the fights. So I try not to bother y'all too much.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it. I just saw you sitting there. I was like, yeah, I just saw you just sitting there. I was like, man, I'm kind of leaving Matt out in the call. I just didn't know if you had anything for him or not.
Yeah, no. I kind of sit back on these because, like I said, they hear from me enough, especially guys like Justin. They hear from me a lot before the fights, leading up to it. So I try to not overdo it.
Yeah. All right, but Justin, you're a young fighter. You're a 90s baby. So you were born basically when the UFC first started. So when you were growing up, who are the fighters you were looking up to?
Well, when I first started watching it, I mean, I liked watching the guys like Chuck Liddell go, and when I first got into it, it was like Chuck Liddell and I got to really think about this. It was like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture were really going, and I would always catch like the little reruns on Spike.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just I mean, we didn't have the money to be shelling out for like pay-per-views, and back then, the internet wasn't really a big thing, so you couldn't just like illegally stream it or something. So
That's correct. You had to know some people back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that would be the first guy I could remember really watching and be like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, this is something that this is something I could get into,
Yeah. So any fighters that you watch today, you're like, man, that's the style I want. I kind of want to have, like, implement his style into my game. Is there any fighters like that for you right now?
I wouldn't necessarily like it's the style, but more the mindset, like Demetrius Johnson. I just like him because he goes out there and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Like, he doesn't make a lot of bad decisions.
Correct.
It's kind of like when Chris Wyman tried a spinning kick on Luke Rockhold and got taken down, and you're just sitting there like, why are you doing? Like, I'm like,
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like he was trying to get out of his element. He tried to fight up to Luke Rockhold. I think we're losing you, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of like, I'm always going out there just playing my game, and I don't really. I mean, I watch other fighters, and I kind of pick, and you could always be the way like Robbie Lawler would fight, because he would be like, when he was actually like, when he's not out of his prime, like when he was in his prime on his second stint in the UFC, just because he was able to really like, things didn't start off really well for him, but he was able to kind of realize his full potential, and it happened a little bit later in his career. So it's kind of like you see stuff like that and you're like, oh man, just because things aren't going so well for you right now doesn't mean that you can't get to the level that you can be at one day.
Right. So I got a question. With the resurgence of the Ultimate Fighter coming back, do you see yourself going that route, or do you see yourself going to Dana White's contender route, or do you have your eyes on like the PFL $1 million tournament, or what? Like, what's your like if you had a roadmap right now, what would it look like?
Hey, I'm first come, first serve.
I feel you on that.
Anybody can get it. I mean, fighting is what I love to do. So, I mean, what they say, you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. So, I mean, whoever's shelling out those checks for me to cash in the cage, I mean, that's where I'll go. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you want to keep all your options open, because you never know what can happen in fighting. I mean, you may just get called up on short notice and not even have to do Ultimate Fighter or Contenders or what have you. I mean, this fighting sport, it gets crazy, especially with the COVID and everything going on.
Yeah. What is your mindset when you first step into that cage? I know, talking to some guys are like, I'm just going in and I have my game plan in my mind. Some guys they go in there, they just go with the flow, see where the fight takes them, and they just go from there. Like, what's your approach when you first step into that cage and the gloves are touched and the ref says, all right, let's do this? Do you want to, are you the guy who leads the dance, or are you the guy who just, whatever happens, happens?
I'm going in there, and I'm not really thinking about what he's going to do. I'm more just thinking about what, I have in my mind, like, what I'm going to do, and I'm just calm. Like, once you enter the cage, like, all the nervousness and the angst, it pretty much goes away, and so I'm just calm, and I know what I'm going to do, and I go out there and do it. And with pretty much all my fights, I mean, there's always action. I'm trying to go in there and throw You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sit back for too long.
Right. So you have you already have the fight playing in your head how you want it to go. And that's like your ultimate goal is for that fight to just happen the way you had it pictured leading up.
Yeah, it's funny, you can visualize the fight going so many different ways, but it usually it doesn't always turn. It's weird. It almost never turns out the way that you picture it going in, But I just picture my biggest thing is just like picturing like overcoming like adversity like in the cage, you know what I mean? And so that way I'm not that way I'm not freaking out when the adversity occurs, because it most of the time in most fights it's going to occur, I mean, unless you just one punch some guy in like a minute or something. But that's what I'm picturing is just like really like overcoming the obstacles that are going to come in my way. So that way, when they do happen, I'm ready to go.
So it's like almost like you're Batman almost. If plan A doesn't happen, you have plan B in your utility belt. But if that plan B is not there, well, you go to the other side of the utility belt and you have plan C right there. So pretty much that's your mindset, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I respect that. So you just got done with Atlas fights, and you say you don't have anything coming up. So right now you're just sitting back, you're training, you're staying ready in case that last minute phone call replacement comes through. Are you the type of guy that's hesitant to take a fight on short notice, or are you one of those guys who are like, I'll fight anybody anywhere, just sign on the dotted line, I'm there?
Anybody can get it.
Anybody can get it. I like that attitude. It's that Robbie Lawler attitude that you said a while ago. I see like a lot of Robbie Lawler personality coming from you. Like he would take a fight and not care. Because today we have a guy I'm a huge fan of, Mike Chandler, who says, I'll take this fight, anybody, anywhere. But all of a sudden, Mike Chandler doesn't want to fight Tony Ferguson. He doesn't want to fight for the rest of 2020 and so on and so on. So unlike him, you're actually about that life. Just anybody can get it.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I recently moved up a weight class and I was just tired of cutting all the weight. And the reason I was tired of cutting all the weight was because I was tired of having to like plan everything out and it to be perfect. You know what I mean? I think Chandler cuts a lot of weight to make 155. So he
yes,
kind of have everything. Yeah. So he kind of has to plan everything out, and he's only like 5'8", so it's not like 170 is not necessarily practical for a guy like him. But for me, it's like I just think to myself, like, if I'm worried about the other guy having a few pounds on me, then I probably shouldn't call myself a fighter anymore. So that's where that mindset comes from now. It comes from just like knowing now that I don't have any of those things that were not necessarily. I still have the same attitude at 155, but it would kind of be like, man, I'm just gonna, this weight cut's gonna suck, but I'm just gonna get through it. And now it's like the weight cut, it's not a big deal. So, I don't even have to think about that. I can just think about fighting. I mean, it's not the ultimate weight cutting championship; it's the ultimate fighting championship at the end of the day, right? So.
We have a question from the boss of AYS. He asked Justin, has weight cutting been difficult during COVID with not all the resources at your hand?
Yeah, it definitely can be for some guys. And I think the reason why weight cutting can be really difficult is because all the fights are going to come on short notice. So it's like you have to, you either have to be really ready to cut that weight if you're one of those guys that wants to cut a lot of weight, or you need to move up a weight class and so that way you don't have to worry about it.
All right. So you were at lightweight and recently you fought at welterweight. So where are you more comfortable fighting? Do you like being the bigger guy at lightweight, or do you like feeling more, what's the word I'm looking for, energized at welterweight? Because a lot of guys who move up in weight class said they feel like they have more energy the day of the fight. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like having more energy. I mean, Lightweight's just too big of a cut right now for me, man. To be honest, I wish this is what I wish they had. It was 10-pound increments still, because for whatever reason we got this thing in MMA where it's like 25, 35, 45, 55.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent.
And then it's like then it's 170, then it's 185, and then it's 205 pounds. It's like it just doesn't.
It doesn't match up.
Yeah, and now this is a big complaint with boxing that they have too many weight classes. But I had a really good discussion with a friend of mine, and he was like, a lot of people don't understand that, boxers are able to fulfill their full potential a lot easier in a lot of cases because they're able to find the weight class that is just right for them. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, MMA, if you fall in that 15-pound increment category, right, or in a lot of cases like that 20-pound increment category where at 85 and 205, right, you're not necessarily getting into the and I had a discussion with one of my coaches about this. It's like, you just have to pick what problem you want to have. Would you rather be a little bit small or a little bit too big, and then you just go from there.
Yeah. And we also had a guy on here 2 weeks ago, AJ Fletcher, and he actually brought up a good point. He dropped a little biology on us. He says when you cut that weight, you're taking away fluid from around your brain. And when that happens, you're a lot more suspect to getting knocked out. So there is something to that, guys going up in weight. And if you look at a local legend, Dustin Poirier, when he was at featherweight, he was a great fighter at featherweight. But man, once he moved up a weight class, he's been an absolute killer at lightweight.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin, and you can see the way his body changed too. Like everything looks a little more natural, and then you go back and you watch some of his WEC fights or some of his earlier UFC fights, and it's like, man, dude, kind of looking like, and it's not to be disrespectful, it's like you just kind of looking like Skeletor out there. And I had the same thing at lightweight where I was like just skin and bones, and I could tell that I was losing like what are you losing when you're cutting that much weight? I mean, you're losing a lot of water, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to be losing a lot of muscle mass in doing that because your body's got to get it from somewhere. And I'm not like a fat guy, you know what I mean? So it's like, it is what it is at that point. I mean, yeah. You're really depleting yourself trying to cut that weight if you're cutting like 30 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, that goes back to you saying, like, at boxing, they have these more weight classes. And if we did have more weight classes in MMA, we wouldn't have fighters making all these dangerous cuts.
Right. And I mean, I don't see why there isn't a 165-pound division. I mean, 1/3 of the UFC's roster is 55 and 70. So it's not like you're losing you don't have to sign any more talent. It's just going to be dispersed, and then the weight classes are going to be like normal size weight classes like every other weight class. Then it's like, you got Tony Ferguson at lightweight who has to win like 12 fights in a row just to get a title shot, for example.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's other weight classes where guys can come off a loss to get a title shot, or maybe they only got to win like one fight and get a title shot.
A good point. A good example of that is Yoel Romero at 185. He came off a loss and immediately got that title shot.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you look at like women's flyweight, for example. It's just kind of like who had a great performance at the right time will get the title shot.
Yeah, so I feel like if we had more weight classes, like it'd be a lot better for the sport. Because I was actually texting Matt earlier this week. Like, I want a talking point I wanted to do on the show tonight. Like, we'll probably get to that at a later date, though, is how to fix the 205 division. Because right now, that division is absolutely depleted. Like, there's not a single fight in that division like I really want to see. But if we were to like change up those weight classes a little bit, and to where we could get like Paulo Costa at like let's say a 195 weight division, that would spark my interest. Like, I have a Jan Blachowicz versus Paulo Costa matchup.
Right. Or, I mean, there's other guys too that would fit at that 195 division much better. Like Luke Rockhold would be a really good example.
Absolutely.
He hasn't been fighting in a while. gosh, can't even really think of a lot of examples off the top of my head, but yeah, there's a lot of matchups that could happen in MMA that you wouldn't think because of the weight class, because of the way the weight classes are distributed, right? Like if you had like a 165-pound division, for example, you could have like a Stephen Thompson fight a guy like Dos Anjos or something like that. Or you could have like a Stephen Thompson fight a guy like trying to think of it, or like a Stephen Thompson versus Kevin Lee, but a Kevin Lee who's not depleting himself so bad, you know. Those are just examples I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, and another suggestion I have, instead of the 205 division, bump that up to the 220 division, because now these 205 guys who at that awkward weight, like Ovis St. Preux, for example, is at that awkward weight where he's cutting too much for lightweight, but if he goes up to heavyweight, he's a small ass heavyweight.
Yeah, he's like 230.
Yeah. So it gives those guys a new avenue. It creates stars in that new weight division.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that are, they have to make that tough choice, and like I said before, you just have to pick what problem you want to deal with at that point.
Yeah.
If you're one of those, tweeners,
Yeah. Well, Justin, it was an honor to have you on. Enjoyed this. Any sponsorships you want to shout out?
I want to shout out Elite Medical Center here in Las Vegas. They do if you live in Vegas and you need to get a COVID test done and you need the result today, that's the place to go. They also handle all of my medicals for my fights, which is a huge deal for a fighter, making it nice and easy for me. Shout out to Dr. Shannon Orsak and the crew out there. And then Milestone Family Dentistry and Makotech mouth guards. They make the best mouth guards in the business, and they're constantly evolving and changing the design for the mouth guard too, so that way it's more comfortable. I actually got a new mouth guard that fight week from them. So, it was really nice. I could breathe in it and everything. So if you got kids that play sports in the Baldwin County area of Alabama, definitely go check out Miriam Perdomo and the crew at Milestone Family Dentistry to get your custom-made mouthpiece done. And, just want to shout out all of my training partners and teammates and coaches at Syndicate MMA. We're having a really we're really closing out the year strong, and next year is going to be big for us.
All right, Justin, it was an honor to have you on. So yeah, thank you for coming on. Matt, anything you want to say to Justin before we let him out?
We appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah, anytime you ever want to come back on to promote a fight or whatever you want to promote, just
definitely
shoot us a text. We'll let you on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so that was Justin Osborne. That was a really intelligent guy. I'm not saying that as like I'm surprised he's intelligent. No, it was a good flowy conversation,
Yeah,
he brought up a good point when he brought up those boxing weight classes, how there's so many.
Yeah.
I love that he brought that up, because when I was texting you the other day, that was exactly my idea on how to fix the 205 division, was just to bump it up to 220, because that brings those smaller heavyweights down, and it brings those awkward 205 guys who are missing weight like OSP up. So yeah,
especially with Dana White saying not too recently, hey, this is the largest payroll that we've ever had of fighters. Well, break it up a little bit, add some more divisions, and you make some more stars. You're always talking about making stars. Well, here's a chance. Make some new divisions, change some face, let some guys elevate up who are at the bottom just because they haven't had a chance to feed. Let some of those guys start working their way up.
Absolutely. All right. Our next guy, he's a podcaster. What's his podcast?
It's a Fight Sports Focus.
Fight Sports Focus. And he is a photographer for combat sports down south. He's our Esther Lynn. Everybody, please welcome to the Fight Club, Jeffery Hoffman. Jeffery, what's up?
Hey, what's up, dudes? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you actually got the podcast voice going on, man.
Hey, man, we're ready to go. I've recorded one already today. I've got Nikki the G and Professor Marcus Dempsey on the way to record episode 17 for our show. So I'm just like in podcast mode already.
Hey, that's awesome. I noticed you got that bare knuckle FC bag behind you. So, and Matt told me you do some work for bare knuckle FC. So tell us what you do for bare knuckle FC.
Yeah, sure. So Fight Sport Focus, myself and Nicholas Sherlock, who's a co-host on the podcast, we were invited to go out to their last show in Miami just to have a meet and greet and talk with Nate and Katie Shook. We got to meet David Feldman. We got to meet Dan Muragliata. It was really cool experience. So we went out there just to talk about how we could build our relationship and what we could do. So we're interviewing a lot of their fighters pre-fight to try to help them promote, get their stories out. You know, the same thing that we've been doing here for fighters on the Gulf Coast, but now expanding that relationship to not just another sport, but to a different area of the country.
Hey, I'm all for that. I'm all for expanding the sport. So you're fighting the good fight for me. So thank you for that. And I gotta agree with the boss. That mic is absolute fire. You got my little mic right here. Put that right to shame.
Look, we got microphones all over this place, man. We got this one here, this one over here. We got one back here. We ready to go.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. So you also do some photography. What can you tell us about photographing that right moment during a fight? Or are you just clicking just to see what sticks?
Man, it's the hardest thing about it, right? And you can have a whole show where you fire off 1,500 shots and not even get that one shot. And it's a common thing, you know, not just with guys like myself, but you talk with some of the more prominent combat sport photographers. And yeah, you can go an entire night and not get that shot. They're that rare. Even if you've got a camera that's going 25, 30 frames per second, which you would think is incredibly fast, you're still going to miss that shot if you're just holding it down because it happens at that fast of a rate, right? It happens at such a quick rate that you've got to have perfect timing. So what it comes down to really is you've got to anticipate it and you've got to press the button before the punch or before the kick is thrown. And you've just got to hope that you've timed it right and that they're going at that speed and you get that shot. It's rare. I mean, I might get one every 3 or 4 shows, but when it happens, it's really special.
Yeah, because when Matt told me that you were a photographer, I was like, man, it must be the hardest photography job in all sports to be a combat sports photographer. Because when you're photographing, say, like a football, when the arms are stretched out for the ball, or the quarterback's like rearing back to throw, or in the NBA, the guy's pulling up for a jump shot, you know, just to go ahead, click that button. But you don't know when they're firing off these shots in combat sports, whether it's a hook or a kick or just a power double leg. Like, you just don't know when that's coming. So I'm not surprised that you said that this is a very hard thing to shoot.
Yeah, and MMA particularly because you've got the cage in between you, so you've got focusing issues are constantly
think about that.
On. Yeah, and so you're constantly having focusing issues. Guys are moving and turning, and you want to be on the guy's face who's facing the camera, so you're constantly having to adjust and work on the timing. You know, football, basketball, just regular sports, you can have a fast camera and you can hold down on the shutter. And at some point, as long as you were holding the button, you're going to get the action. You're going to get the shot that you were looking for. Yeah, but with fighting, it's just it happens so fast. That moment that you're looking for is happening so fast that you've got to have that timing dead on.
Yeah, and I've stepped by you many times. How many times has the referee been in your way for a great shot?
Dude, I feel like it's constant, man. I feel like they've got something against me. They see where I'm at, and they make it their point just to stand between me and whatever the hell's going on. And that's just a joke, right? Because Nick, who's on his way by, he's a referee here in Louisiana, and Myron and Gabe and all those guys do a great job. But, I mean, as a photographer, you always want to have, you know, that straight line of vision. And anytime anybody gets in between you and them, you know, you kind of think it's something personal. You're like, what the hell, guys? You know what I'm here to do.
I mean, have you ever thought about just shouting, "Get your ass out of my way"? I mean, I'm sure you get like a a demerit or something. Like, get the hell up out of here.
Never. And if you see, like, at UFC, Bellator, the big events, they've always got, 10, 15 photographers all around the cage.
Yes.
Because if there's only one, you're going to miss more shots than you get, right? And it could be the knockout of the century. And if it just happens to be on the other side of the cage, or if there happens to be a post there, or if the guys are just at the wrong angle, you can have your timing perfect and still miss everything.
That's awesome. So Bare Knuckle FC, they were actually in the news recently. I don't know if this is true or not. Supposedly, Anderson Silva recently out of UFC showed some interest in Bare Knuckle FC. And the rumor is, I'm not saying it, don't shoot the messenger here, that Bare Knuckle FC did not want anything to do with Anderson Silva. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, so I've heard the same thing about that story, that they didn't have any interest in Anderson Silva. But on a side note, I know you guys have been recording the last 30 minutes or so. Don't know if you've been in the news. Yoel Romero was just released from the UFC, and we were at BKFC 14 in Miami. Romero was there cage side. So I don't know. I don't have any inside information, but it would be really interesting to see if he takes a shot, takes the gloves off, toes the line, and goes bare knuckle.
Wow, Jeffery Hoffman.
Breaking news here for you guys.
News on AYS Fight Club. We're sitting here interviewing, and one of my favorite fighters just got released. That's crazy as hell. But yeah, I would absolutely love to see him in bare knuckle. I'm scared he might kill somebody.
I have no inside information. We don't know anything that anybody else doesn't. We just have relationships with the matchmaker and some of the other people. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Romero taking the gloves off and towing the line.
I wouldn't doubt it. The dude's a freak athlete. So Bare Knuckle FC, when it first started, there were a lot of naysayers. I was like one of the first people I knew of that was like, this could be huge. And I think it still has barely scratched its surface of what it could be. And I think y'all are so close to getting it, especially with the recent signing of Paige Van Zandt. I think she's going to bring a lot of eyeballs. And the one thing,
Frank Mir also. Frank Mir is going to be making his debut soon.
I forgot about that. And the best thing I've ever seen came from Bare Knuckle FC was when Paulie Malignaggi came in and lost to Artem Lobov. I was cracking up laughing so bad because it kind of humbled Paulie a little bit, and I love watching those guys get humbled. Were you there for that?
No, not in person for that, but I watched it live, and I actually spoke with Nate Shook, who's the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship matchmaker. We talked about this in Miami, that with gloves on, Paulie Malignaggi wins that fight 100 out of 100 times, and it just shows us how different of a sport bare knuckle boxing is compared to traditional gloved boxing.
Right,
and
because with those gloves, you could get some good defense like this, but take the gloves off, you could split this guard just as easy with just a straight jab or a straight cross or whatever. And Paulie Artem kind of exploited that from Paulie, because Paulie was in there doing a traditional boxing, whereas Artem went out there, he just swung and bang, and that's what y'all want in this sport. It's just nonstop action. That's what Artem gave us.
Yeah, and something else to consider, and we discuss this sometimes, is that since the sport is so new, the people that have experience, and the experience is 2 fights, 3 fights, 4 fights. I think Jim Ehlers, Reggie Barnett have 5 or 6. Those guys are doing great, because just that little bit of experience, that edge and experience, is going a long, long way for these guys, because the sport's so new. And people who are coming in from other sports, particularly boxing, are getting outclassed because it's such a new and different experience.
Another example for that.
We even talk about that. Oh, sorry. We even talk about that with boxing and then MMA boxing, wrestling and MMA wrestling. It's just a tweak difference, and exactly to what you're saying, it's that tweak difference from boxing and bare knuckle fighting. And exactly what you're saying. Those guys have been able to make those tweaks to make the difference as those other things.
Yeah, and another point to that was y'all actually had a legend in his own right. Charles Crazy Horse Bennett was in there. And everybody thought that he had all this MMA experience, and he went out and lost to my boy Michael McDonald.
Absolutely. Crazy Horse or Felony Bennett, whichever you prefer.
He's crazy. He will always be Crazy Horse. I'm a Pride FC junkie, and he will always be Crazy Horse, and that's that.
Absolutely. He's fighting next weekend, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 15 in Biloxi, Mississippi. He's going to be taking on Tyler Goodjohn in his BKFC debut.
Nice. Can't wait for that one. So any other news coming out of Bare Knuckle FC? Bare Knuckle FC we should know about?
So something really cool to look for. It got slowed down with the coronavirus, but this was supposed to be happening here in Biloxi on the 11th. Is their Toe the Line series? So that's akin to the Dana White Contender series and what it does to the UFC. So the Toe the Line series is actually owned by Nate Shook. He's the matchmaker as well. And what they do is go to the regional circuit. They get guys who want to fight bare knuckle, and it's their opportunity for an audition to get on the big show.
Hey, I like that. Where can we? When that actually happens, where we can find that on the Fight app, right?
Fights are broadcast live on the BKTV app.
Okay, BKTV app. Okay, thank you for that. So let's get back to the photography. Is there any shot that you're particularly proud of? Like, as soon as you saw this, you're like, this is it. This is my masterpiece. This is my Mona Lisa.
So we've got David Gordon behind me, landed a monster head kick on NKI's Travis Chitwood. I'm going to get my big head out the way here and let you guys see.
Now that's a shot right there.
So I've got that one on my Facebook cover story, and we got it printed here in Canvas. I actually gave a copy to the promoter to hang up in the office.
That was Atlas, huh? Like Atlas 55, 56?
Yeah, you got it.
One of those?
Yeah, and it's such a rare shot. I mean, everything has to be right. The angle, the timing, referee placement, pole placement. I mean, it's an incredibly rare shot. I've taken tens of thousands of fight photos, and I mean, this almost never happens.
Man, that's so awesome. So yeah, so it must be like a rush of endorphin. As soon as you take that shot and you look at your camera and you see what you have behind you, it's like, yeah, I did this. I captured this.
Between rounds, you're going through it and trying to bookmark or favorite the ones that you know are good, and it's a lot of the same stuff over and over and over. And when one of these happen, yeah, you know it immediately.
Yeah, and then you said you have those nights where you just don't get jack.
I mean, it's nights and it's show after show after show. You'll go 3 or 4 without getting that shot that you're looking for. And I think we call it like the face mush. Oftentimes, that's one of the things that you're looking for, where you've got contact and the face looks distorted. From it. It doesn't look like a typical face. That, and of course, body fluids. And that's,
yeah, as soon as like my favorite shots from Esther Lynn. I'm sure you know who Esther Lynn is. Yeah. Like my favorite shots of hers is like when people just get that distorted face and you see just sweat just. Bleh.
Yeah, that face mush. And probably her most famous photo would be that Holly Holm head kick on Ronda Rousey.
Yes, it was. So what you got going on now? Bare Knuckle FC, you got the photography. Anything special coming up you want to shout out?
Oh, man, always a million things going on with Fight Sport Focus and Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship now, building that relationship with those guys. They're keeping us busy. Nicholas Sherlock, my co-host for the Fight Sport Focus podcast, and I have a business that we're beginning starting in 2021. It's going to be something that's super beneficial to fighters, promoters all along the Gulf Coast. Make sure you guys tune in for that. We're not going to release the info just quite yet. We're waiting for the beginning of the year. It's going to be a huge, huge deal for, again, fighters and promoters here on the Gulf Coast.
Hey, anything that benefits the fighters, I'm all for. So let's get it. Let's make it happen in 2021, man. So Matt, anything else you want to get? Ask Jeffrey?
No, I mean, I'm sure I'll see you soon. But yeah, I mean, and also 99% of the photos that y'all see that I put on the RU Series fan page or on my page where I promote this week's coming show and I put pictures of our fighters, Jeffrey is the one who was taking those pictures.
Yeah. All right, Jeffrey. Anything you want to shout out before you go? Besides Fight Sports Focus. Everybody go listen to that podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
hey, thank you guys so much for having me on, man. This is really, really cool. If you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all platforms at Fight Sport Focus. You can bookmark our website, fightsportfocus.com. We're covering local events, UFC, Bellator, whatever's happening nationally, internationally, but we've got the local Gulf Coast scene covered as well. Check out our photography on at Fight Sport Focus on Instagram, and give the podcast a listen. Anchor, iTunes, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, man. Thank you for coming on. Anytime you ever want to come back on, just let us know. We'll find a spot for you.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right, Jeff. Take it easy.
Bye.
No. All right. So that was Jeffrey right there. That was like, as soon as I saw that photo behind him. I was wondering, did he take that one? Because that one was awesome.
Yeah, I called that fight. That was David Gordon and Travis Chitwood. That was for the Atlas Fights amateur lightweight title. Can't remember if it was Atlas 55 or 56, but yeah, no, I remember that event. Yep.
That's awesome. But we actually got my favorite shot right there in all of combat sports was Buster Douglas knocking out Tyson. So as soon as I saw that online, it was autographed by Buster. I had to have it. Had to have it. Yeah, it was like it was very cheap too. It was like $30. I was like, okay. And it had like a little certificate I got glued to the back. So that's something I'm keeping for the rest of my life. I thought it was a steal.
I'm part of that Tyson lineage. The Jack. If anybody follows me, I'll post all the time about Jack Dempsey and Sonny Liston, Mike Tyson. I'm from that lineage right there.
Hey, Mike Tyson's one of my favorite fighters ever. Just so happens he fought my favorite fighter ever last week, Roy Jones Jr. So let's go ahead and segue to that. I'm going to go ahead and say this. It's probably a hot take, but I think that was the production of the year by far. Like they tapped into something that I feel like the UFC, boxing, any promotion you can think of needs to get right there. That's just the pageantry. That's something this sport has missed since probably the Pride days. We haven't had that level of pageantry. We had rap performances. We had Snoop Dogg. We had just so much. We had AC Slater from Saved by the Bell. Mario Lopez randomly inserted in there, who's he'll wake up eventually. Nate will wake up eventually. So, and that's another thing I want to applaud. Everybody's hating on the Jake Paul, Nate Robinson fight, but let's be honest here. We need more freak show fights like this. I'm not saying like let that be the headliner or something. Maybe headline a prelim card like CM Punk did for the UFC. And because the main thing here is to get eyeballs on the product. And if you get eyeballs on the product, you get eyeballs on your fighters. Because honestly, the best fighter on there Saturday night was Badu Jack by far. And he was only the second fighter. And the second fight. And he was by far the most talented boxer in that building at that very moment.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up. He's actually Badu Jack the Ripper. I love that guy. Best name in boxing.
Oh my God. He has like the best first last name combination and nickname.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah. I mean, dude, he's a very solid boxer. I'm glad he's getting some light on him. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, if boxing has this issue right now of getting the matchups we really want to see. And I think this was maybe a little shot at boxing to show that, hey, we could get Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. in the ring together. You know, look at all these matchups that y'all can put together if you just do it right. I think it was almost a shot at the sport in general to shape them and say like, hey, look, we did this. Y'all could do the same thing. Let's get, Errol Spitz Jr. in there with Terrence Crawford. Let's get, these cross promotion things that we can't happen because, you're top rank and I'm a golden boy. Let's get this. Get it figured out to where we can get the matchups that we really want to see in the sport.
Absolutely. And the whole idea of legends fighting, I love it. But I don't think that's something that could stay there. But what I think has the staying power is those freak fights like Jake Paul and Nate Robinson. And when you have that fight, have some legit contenders on there like Badu Jack. Before this fight, how many people knew Badu Jack's name besides like us? Nobody. So, and he got a chance to showcase that. And another thing that I want to give them a special shout out for was, I think it was like a 2-3 minute rounds, and it was only 8 rounds.
They did a 3-minute round, yeah.
Yeah, 8 rounds, 3 minutes.
And the ring was about this big.
Okay, that was my only complaint, actually.
Much smaller ring, so it kept the action right there.
Okay, which I like that
because it did give Roy the space. I mean, Roy's not going to move like how he used to, but it makes it more of a phone booth type fight when you have a small ring. If you're more about movement and angles and in and out and stuff like that, you couldn't do that. It made for phone booth type fights.
Yeah, I love the smaller ring for MMA, but for boxing, I'm not too big of a fan of the smaller ring because you get more of those tie-ups, and it's just whatever. But so yeah, I want to commend them on the 8 rounds, 3 minutes. That was perfect because if you watch like a Canelo Alvarez fight and you're just waiting for that one fight, the Canelo fight, and you're watching like 10 rounds of boxing, you're just like, come on, I don't need 12 rounds of this. So I want to commend them big time on the 8 rounds. So, and let's stick in the realm of boxing and sort of go into MMA. Let's talk about Cleressa Sheilds. I think this is MMA's next big star. Do you agree?
No. 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 No, not at all.
I think we have something here.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we even talked about it earlier. Boxing is different than MMA boxing. Wrestling is different than MMA wrestling. I mean, what can she do on the ground? You know, we'll find out. She made a comment, I think it was earlier today. So yeah, she said, I think it was something to if I train for 2 years straight, I should have a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's going to take you 5 times that long to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
I mean, if you train under Henry Gracie, I mean, you could probably buy a nice little black belt in like 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a black belt if you go on Amazon. I'm sure or eBay. I'm sure you can get it, but you ain't going to earn it in 2 years, no matter who you are.
No,
I mean,
it took there's this guy. I can't. His name escapes me. Like I have his picture right there in my brain. He was like one of the quickest legit black belts who actually competed in the ADCC card not too long ago. It took him 3 years to get his black belt, and he was considered
BJ Penn. I know he was the prodigy. He got his pretty quick too. But
yeah, it took BJ I think 4 years to get his. But this guy who competed in Abu Dhabi, he got his in 3. Who's like supposedly like the quickest legit black belt of all time.
That's quick, but I don't know with that mindset. I don't know, and they always say that wrestling background, or as we've seen with the females, the judo background, with Ronda Rousey, and they've seen Kayla Harrison, who we're seeing right now, transition from the judo style. It's a little bit more apt for MMA. Boxing is a little bit different. Everyone can kind of strike, but what are you going to do when you're on the ground? It's a whole different thing. You can't utilize that. So, I mean, we'll just have to see how her ground game is and who she's, with. And
I have a counterpoint to this. We're forgetting that it's women's MMA, and Cleressa Sheilds is going to be competing at the featherweight. And man, she's going to outmuscle a lot of girls. And those takedowns, you kind of got to have that muscle, male or female. And like right now, the female featherweight division, the only terrifying wrestlers they really have, Kayla, and that's about it.
Kayla Harrison, the champion, yeah, that's going to be interesting. But she can't go to that right away.
No,
they're going to do what they did with Kayla.
Yeah, PFL's going to prop her up. They're going to give her some time.
Exactly.
Another thing that Cleressa has on her side is she is young. I think she's like 20, like early 20s, 23 maybe. And she's at a good camp. She's actually training with Greg Jackson. As I pointed out to you earlier before the show, she's at Jackson Winklejohn, but she's only training exclusively with Greg Jackson. So I think that's going to carry a lot of water in that bucket.
Yeah, we could. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you could throw me an American Top Team, and it doesn't mean I'm going to win a world championship. You can only do so much with the talent. If she can't click it on the ground, I mean, you could be a world class boxer, and it doesn't mean it's going to click for you on the ground. It doesn't mean it's not Floyd Mayweather. If he gets into jiu-jitsu, just because he's the best boxer of all time, doesn't mean he's going to be the best jiu-jitsu player of all time. And that's kind of something that people need to remember. I mean, striking is different than being on the ground. It's a whole different thought process.
I mean, he's working for Francis. Francis ain't got no ground game for shit, but he's unhinging jaws right now.
My brain doesn't work that way. I can't operate well on the ground. It's not my thing. I'm more comfortable doing the boxing. It just everybody has their comfort zone, and we'll see. I mean, it's definitely a big name for PFL. Props to them for getting the sign, and that's huge when you're fighting against the sharks like the UFC and Bellator to have your $1 million tournament. Get people like Kayla Harrison, get Cleressa Shields. Hey, props too. I'm not going to hate on them for that, but we'll just see. As long as they do it right, they can get a good run out of her, and then we'll see what happens in the end.
Yeah, they get a good run out of her. I'm telling you, this is going like her eventual super fight with Nunes. I think it's definitely going to happen. I think that's going to be the fight that Amanda Nunes is going to hold out for before she hangs it up officially. Is that Cleressa Shields? I think she's looking at this like, this is my legacy fight right there. Olympic boxer, and I'm going to go out there. I'm going to bust off. Plus, I think Amanda Nunes is going to absolutely go through Cleressa. I'm just saying, I think Cleressa is that next MMA star that we're going to be seeing.
I don't think it gets that far, but yeah, okay. I mean, the name right now, the name value, it's props, like I said, props to PSL and props to her for giving it a shot. I mean, how many world-class boxers do you see like that come over and give it a shot? Props to her for giving it a shot.
Paulie Malignaggi.
James Toney is a world champion, at multiple levels, and he just, I don't know. I don't think he took it that serious. I'm sure Shields is taking it a lot more serious than Toney did. But just as an example of how bad it can look, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different sport, really.
Yeah, and I think like I want to say like the best boxer who's never made that transition had to be I want to say Ray Mercer, probably. I mean, I know he knocked the shit out of Tim Sylvia.
Yeah.
but then again, I think he also lost to Kimbo Slice. I think Kimbo Slice actually submitted him, so I think he's not that great of an example.
And that was way past Sylvia's prime, too.
I mean, did Sylvia really have a prime? I mean, he was just a product of a horrible, horrible division at the time.
Fair enough.
All right, but so let's kind of make a little further segue. Let's talk about the Ali Act in MMA. I feel like every once in a while that topic gets brought up. So are you in favor or are you against the Ali Act in MMA?
First off, we kind of came across this, a fellow writer at My MMA Sports that did an article on it, so it kind of sparked it. And like you said, I'm surprised we haven't talked about it earlier.
Before we continue, can you give the listeners a rundown of what exactly the Ali Act is?
Okay, so pretty much what the Ali Act is, it was initiated in 2000. What it is, it was pretty much made to safeguard boxers. The promoters had, for hundreds of years, have notoriously screwed over their fighters. One of the famous stories is that Don King, when he would take expenses out of Mike Tyson's check, took like $84,000, and the expense was for his white towels that he used to dry himself off. So, I mean, and then Tyson never saw all this, so he didn't know where these expenses were coming. So, that's one of the infamous stories.
And props to Don King. If you're going to screw over a fighter, that's one of the last 80s Tyson is like one of the last fighters I want to mess with, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah, you got some balls on you to mess with Tyson. Even now, I wouldn't even mess with Tyson now at 54. Right. But yeah, back then, you had something going on. But it's made to safeguard the fighters. It's made to, make things more transparent to where the organizations, they have to disclose to the fighter directly what the show made. Hey, we made X amount on this show, with X amount of views or whatever. Safeguard, and also, like I said, just make things a little bit more transparent for the boxer.
Yeah. So are you for it or are you against it?
In MMA, I don't think it's going to work. If you keep it the way it is, because one of the things is that the promoter cannot be, the facilitator. So pretty much the way it is, the UFC would not be able to have a UFC champion because they're promoting, so they can't facilitate. Mm-hmm. So you would have to. That's where the WBC and IBF and all this stuff come in. So all these organizations have the champion to where, so the promoter, Top Rank, or Golden example, they don't have their own champions. It's WBC. So UFC would have to get rid of their champions. Bellator would have to get rid of their champions. You'd have to make a overseeing body that would make, okay, this is the world MMA heavyweight champion. And then you run into the same problem we have now with boxing. So how do you make if he's in UFC, how are you going to get him to fight the guy in Bellator? And you kind of end up with those problems that we have now in boxing.
And plus, it's easy to bypass the Ali Act. I mean, Al Heyman is famous for bypassing that. I mean, he acts as manager, promoter, and he has like all these little things in place. And I don't like the whole MMA becoming more centralized. I don't want all these federations like the WBO, the WBA, WBC, IBO, IBF, IBA, whatever, WWE, whatever.
The alphabet soup, yep.
Yeah, the alphabet soup of overseeing bodies of MMA. I don't want that at all. But what I am in favor for is the unionization of fighters. But that's a different topic, though. I think
that's different, yeah.
And I know, like, the most famous proponent of having the Ali Act in MMA is Randy Couture. And that's something I highly disagree with him on. I think if the Ali Act were ever to get expanded into MMA, it would kill a lot of promotions. Like your Titan FCs. Titan FC would have to close up shop, and it'll kill pretty much every local promotion we hold dear to us, like Atlas, Bayou Fighting, all of those guys. So I think as a sport, Ali Act's not for us.
Yeah, I mean, you can come up with something totally different, but the Ali Act, if you want to keep it as it is, the definition of the Ali Act, it's not going to translate over to MMA.
Yeah, I like the idea of promoters being more transparent to the fighters.
Yeah,
I like protecting the rights of the welfare of the fighter, because when it comes to promoters versus fighters, 10 times out of 10, I'm definitely going to be taking the fighter's side.
And also something with the Ali Act, the contracts are for 1 year at a time. So that way it prevents people from, fighters from getting screwed out of not being able to be released and things like this.
If you have that purgatory Dana White's famous for.
Where you have that 4-fight contract and they don't give you that 4th fight. They never schedule it. That way they kind of got you under their thumb. So there's a lot of things that you would have to totally revamp how contracts are done. It would be a total thing. You're not going to get anybody on board with it. Like I said, you could change some things, but the Ali Act, if you want to do it as a whole, there's no way we'd have to change MMA as we know it.
Yeah, and that's also a point I totally forgot about until just now. The whole MMA fighters not being unionized, that was like the biggest point of MMA not being legalized in New York for the damn longest time. Because I don't know if
last state.
Yep. Yeah, it was the last state to legalize it. And you figure with Madison Square Garden, the fight mecca of the world, that they'd be one of the first ones to do that. But they didn't, because the whole thing was Station Casinos was anti-union, and the Culinary Union was just like, well, you won't let your fighters unionize, blah, blah, blah. So they pulled all their strings and lobbyists in New York and prevented all that from happening for the damn longest time. I remember that. I even followed the Facebook page, Legalized New York MMA. That was like I was on that thing constantly. I was waiting for New York to get MMA. And now I regret it because, man, it seems like every card that happens in New York is dog shit and full of controversy.
Yeah.
All right. So what else we got in slate? What else do we say we're going to do? Oh, yeah. Khabib's in the news again. I don't think we've ever had a show where we never mentioned Khabib, Conor, or Dustin. We're always bringing up those three guys in some facet, it feels like.
Well, we're 8 episodes strong, I think, and they've
always made an appearance.
They pop up somehow, yeah.
All right, so Khabib approached the IOC Olympic Committee, and he wants MMA in the Olympics. What are your thoughts? Do you want it?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Oh, I thought we were fixing a fight.
I don't think so. I mean,
yes, he is. He's retired. He is definitely retired.
He's done. He's gonna ride it all as long as he can. But yeah, I think he's done.
He's got his guerrilla fighting championship. He's got his own promotion he wants to run now. He's done.
Yeah, he wanted to meet with the committee of the International Olympic Committee to get MMA as a sport. Now, it used to be back in the day it was as pancration. It actually was an Olympic sport until the modern game started in 1904. And then when the modern game started in 1904, it was cut loose and kind of broke apart to where, wrestling and karate. So we have all these boxing, we have these different aspects of it.
Yeah.
But pancration, which is what MMA is.
Yeah, that's what it originated as.
Was kind of abolished out. No, I mean, I don't know how you would do it. I mean, you can't even get these fighters to fight now.
Right.
How are you going to get them to fight for free? You know,
that's one of my talking points. What professional fighter is going to move their camp overseas or to a different country and fight for free?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you go from 5-minute rounds to amateur, which is 3-minute rounds. You know, you could. I'm sure those kind of logistics could be figured out. Man, the other stuff. I mean, you have to have training camps with this. You can't just kind of jump into it. So, is it going to be like an amateur type thing? But then
and
where
you're
do you
going to need alternates out the butthole on that one.
Exactly. Where do you draw the line as far as stuff like that? I mean, you want to get this done in about 3 to 4 days. You know, wrestling does theirs in 3 days. Mm-hmm. Boxing gets theirs done in a week.
Like, I'm a huge fan of Olympic wrestling, but even I know the whole hoops they got it. But they get tasty sponsorship money out of that, like big sponsorship money. But I don't think anybody's going to be paying these amateur MMA guys that no one's ever heard of out of, like, say, Alabama. No one's ever heard of this kid, so I'm not putting my money. But I'll put my money on Jordan Burroughs. I'll sponsor him because he actually showed what he's made of at Nebraska. So I'll pay him that. And another point, do you actually see someone like Dana White, Ray Sefo, or Scott Coker giving up their fighters?
Well, no, and that's the same thing with Major League Baseball. They don't want to let these guys go to play in the in the Olympics. So I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, how is it going to fall with their contract? And then, God forbid, one of these guys tears an ACL or something like that, and they're going to end up suing the Olympic Committee. Then it's going to end up being this whole thing, and then the Olympics. You know, too much. There's more things that can go wrong that can go right. So whenever you weigh the scale, it just when more goes wrong, then you gotta let it go.
I can see like the washed up fighters from yesteryear, like maybe like someone like Jake Shields going there, John Fitch, or I can see Rusamar Palares going to represent Brazil.
But are there enough of them around the world to make a whole field? You know, and that's what you got to think about too. Is there enough to make a competitive field of these kind of guys? And you know, how are you going to figure out drug testing and all this kind of stuff? You got to figure all that in there.
Okay, the MMA. Okay, if it came down to it, I already tell you what 3 countries.
Yeah, you could already.
I can tell you what 3 countries are going to be up at that podium. It's going to be Brazil, USA, Canada, and Poland is a wild card on that. Maybe maybe Russia.
I'm putting Poland on the stand.
Who are you going to take off? Canada?
I'll take Canada off the stand for Poland. You know my love for KSW in Poland. KSW could take the gold. They could just fill the KSW. They could take the gold.
Let it be known that Matt Bricker's anti-USA athletes right now. Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. I would love to see it. Now, if I would love to see it, absolutely. I would love to watch it. Absolutely. I would love to. I would love to see it too, but then, you know, the logistics behind it, like I said, there's more that can go wrong that could go right. And then when that's the problem, then you can't go for it.
Yeah. And like what upcoming professional prospect, let's say AJ Fletcher, for example, representing the USA, do you really realistically see him moving from Gladiators Academy in Lafayette going all the way to where's the next Olympics? Qatar? I think
Tokyo next year.
Yeah, Tokyo. All right.
Somewhere in Japan. Yeah, Tokyo.
Yeah. Like so I don't see AJ Fletcher leaving his camp, going to train in Tokyo for free. It just doesn't process right with me. And he's an upcoming prospect. So we're definitely not going to see those guys doing it, especially risking their health, fighting for free. Say AJ's over there representing USA at the 170 division. He gets a leg kick, and all of a sudden something snaps in his leg. There goes his career. I mean, he did it for free too.
And all these guys in the UFC, I know their contracts are restricted to where I know it's a whole big thing about independent contractor and employee and all that. That's a whole different conversation we could have for a whole show. But is there a line to where they could even participate in the Olympics? You may not even be able to have any UFC guys depending on how their contracts are done. So then, like I said, there's just too much logistics behind it, I think, to make it to where it's not a headache and to where it's worth it.
Yeah. And let me go back to MMA USA Dream Team. Let me go ahead and play around with that. All right. So at heavyweight,
what weight classes are you going to have? All the weight classes? Or are you going to?
Good point.
You know,
let's just do American MMA professional weight class. Let's just stick with the basics. All right, so heavyweight. I'm not going to say Stipe because I got a feeling Stipe probably say I'm going to go represent Croatia. Or
He'll go Croatia. Yeah. Where? How do you establish that? Yeah.
All right. So my dream team. Okay, for USA, I want not Daniel Cormier. He's retired. So I want current fighter. I want Derek Lewis representing the USA because what?
Francis is going to go to
Nigeria.
Ghana or whatever. Yeah.
All right, so give me Derek Lewis at heavyweight because what better ambassador of America can you think of than Derek Lewis?
My balls are hot.
Yeah, and plus Olympic Village ain't ready for that. The Black Beast, So at light heavyweight, give me John Jones, obviously. Middleweight. What's a good American heavyweight? Middleweight, right?
Izzy's going to be in New Zealand, Australia. He's going to be out that way.
He was born in Nigeria. He could go either or.
He could go either or, depending, yeah.
So give me for middleweight. Man, there's not really any.
I'd have to look at the rankings and just go down the names to.
Yeah, hold on. Give me 1 second. For middleweight,
give us the rankings.
Our best bet is probably Luke Rockhold or Kelvin Gaston. No thanks. Welterweight, I'll have to take Colby. I mean, shit. Say what you want about the guy. He's damn good. Lightweight, Justin Gaethje, obviously. Or no, hell no. Give me Dustin at lightweight. What the hell is that saying? Featherweight, featherweight. Who am I missing? Featherweight. Who we got? Oh, we can do Max at featherweight.
Max Holloway, yeah.
Yeah, bantamweight we can do Aljo, and flyweight we can do. Do I know any American flyweights right now? Joseph Benavidez, maybe. Sergio Pettis. Demetrius Johnson. There we go.
Yep.
So there we go. And I like this one. Thoughts on Colby calling out LeBron? Colby would demolish LeBron. Even though LeBron has him in height, weight, athleticism, Colby would just absolutely murder his ass quickly. And however style he wants to do it. Because that goes back to actually made a comment to Kurt Hollaball on Twitter when Jake Paul called out Dylan Danis. And I asked Kurt, I said, Kurt, what do you think of Jake Paul versus these MMA fighters who aren't known for their striking? So I named out like Dylan Danis, John Fitch.
I think Ben Askren called him out too.
I think Ben Askren pieced the hell out of Jake Paul. Because you got to remember, these guys, there is absolute levels to combat sports. Yeah. Jake Paul has been training boxing probably 2-3 years. I'll say 4 years. I'll give him a 4-year thing. Yeah. Even those 4 years, there's not a damn doubt in my mind that somebody like John Fitch would knock his head clean off his shoulders. Because experience in this shit matters. And Jake Paul ain't got the experience. I mean, props to him for calling out the big boys. But if Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor were to ever happen, that's going to be one of the funniest things we like. You think Nate Robinson's a meme now? Just wait for that shit to happen. All right, so let's go ahead and finish off with Jack Hermansson versus Marvin Vettori. Who do you like in this one?
The main event? I'm going to go with Hermansson. I mean, it's going to be close either way. I kind of like, that they're really close. So I think I'm going to have to go with Hermansson. All
right, so I'm going to go the opposite side of the coin on here. I thought Vittori would be an underdog because Hermansson is a badass dude. He has some A+ grappling, but I like Marvin Vittori. There's just an it factor about him and his striking that I absolutely love.
He got a split decision with Izzy too. So I mean,
but then again, that was very early in Izzy's
whatever it's worth.
I'll take it. And
absolutely.
in the co-main, we have OSP versus Jamal Hill. OSP missed weight, and that goes back to my point from earlier. We need more weight classes for guys like OSP, because OSP is at that awkward size where he's too damn big for 205, where it's depleting everything he has, and he's too small for heavyweight. So there's not really a place for him. So in this fight, I'm going to take Jamal Hill. Who do you got?
First off, shout out to Justin Angona. Get your ass back in the cage. Love seeing you fighting. Get back in there.
Hey, let's get him on Fight Club. How about that?
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, Atlas Fights champion, Bayou Fighting champ, amateur heavyweight champion. Get your ass back in the cage, boy. And I've never seen OSP miss weight before, so I don't know if it was it's always alarming when somebody like that misses weight, you know.
Yeah, somebody who's had that
you don't know
much
if there was
experience.
Exactly. You don't know if there's an injury or something. It's alarming, you know, and that's why I like that, you know, we do this show after the weigh-ins, because, man, that's a whole that can change your perspective on it. The weigh-ins, the face-off, that can totally change the fight.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Oh, look, we got some breaking news.
February 20th
at the Empire. There we go.
Well,
breaking news, AYS.
Yeah, Mr. Angona. We'd like to invite you on the show before that so we can hype up this fight. Get it going, dude.
Coming out of retirement.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Hill. You know, I'm gonna go with the upset. You know, I know St. Preux. I've always been a huge fan of him. I love St. Preux. 4 of the 6 Von Flue chokes that have happened in the UFC have been from St. Preux.
Let me go ahead and go on record saying I'm the biggest anti-Von Flue choke advocate in the whole damn world. I've been victimized by a Von Flue choke more times than I want to admit it because of Kurt Hollabot. He has gotten me so many damn times with a Von Flue choke. Like, I feel like, oh, yeah, I finally got his neck. I'm going to sink this guillotine in. Nope. And the damn thing is, soon as I know it's happening, it's too late. My hand's trapped. I can't get that hand down. There's just nothing left except for me to accept it. So I'm very anti-Von Flue chokes. Every time I see it, I get a little PTSD from that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Hill. You know, I think he can pull off the offset. You know, he's looked pretty good so far, and man, OSP, he's just getting older. You know, and I just think and like I said, that scares me that somebody like that missed weight. You know, I don't know if he had some kind of injury. That's something you never know. And then all of a sudden after the fight, you hear, oh yeah, I tore this and I tore that. You know, and maybe he may be, you know, falling in one of those situations. So I'm gonna go with Hill because I think there's something wrong with OSP going into this.
All right, and before that fight, our 9th fight on the card, we got Gabriel Benitez versus Justin James. These are 2 upcoming prospects. For this one, I think I'm going to take Justin James on this.
Just to be different, I'll go with Gabriel Benitez.
All right.
Just to be different. I mean, he's 5-5 in the UFC, so he's got that experience. He's got that octagon experience. You know, he was a part of that very first season of the Ultimate Fighter Latin America.
Yeah.
18 of his 21 wins are by finish.
He's a lightweight, and he's actually going down in weight to do this. So I kind of like that.
Done. Yeah, he can get it done.
I love watching new guys fighting new weight classes after seeing them in another weight class.
And a lot of them, it can spark a whole new thing for them. You know, it can kind of spark new life in them. So just to be different, I'm gonna go with that, Gabriel on that one.
All right, and I'm just gonna go down the card a little bit. We actually got a fight I'm actually excited to watch. Is Louis Smolka versus Jose Quinones. That's gonna be a fun little fight right there. Who you liking this one?
And I like Smolka since he's came back. You know, he had a good little run, then he fell off, and he went back to the regional scene. Kind of got his act together. I know he had a lot of issues, personal issues that he got straight. So I'm gonna go with Smolka. You know, I like to see somebody that can rebound and get back on their feet from personal issues and get back going. So you know, more power to him.
Yeah, and the fight before that, we have somebody I mentioned earlier was Jordan Levitt versus Matt Wyman. So pay attention to that fight, everybody. I got Jordan Levitt on there just for
absolutely.
Justin.
Me too.
Yeah. And in the curtain puller of the fight, we actually have John Volante at heavyweight, his second heavyweight fight after. There's just something about John Volante. It just frustrates me. He seems like the type of guy who's going to pull it together. I thought he was going to do some serious damage at light heavyweight, and you never could really get it together. And he's fighting Jake Collier. So hopefully this isn't the last we've seen of John Volante. I hope he gets one last run together. I always had high hopes for him. So I'm very biased toward the Longo Sarah camp. I love Matt Serra, Ray Longo, and I love their guys. And John Volante is no different.
That fight's going to be a train wreck, but I'll watch it.
Yeah, I mean, shit, there's nothing else for me to watch. There's going to be some one-sided affairs tomorrow. Bama LSU. Sorry, Blake. It's going to be very one-sided in LSU's favor. All right. Matt, anything you want to say before we get up out of here?
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to Nate Landwehr. You know, he's gonna.
Yeah, I forgot about him. He's fighting Evilov, isn't that right?
Yeah, Evilov. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. You know, Nate, he is. I mean, if you've never seen him fight, he is hyper aggressive fighter, super aggressive in your face. Both of these guys are former M1 champions.
Yeah,
they actually
his fight with Darren Elkins was an absolute banger. I enjoyed that one.
They actually both fought on the same card where Nate was the main event and Evilov was the co-main event. So it's always kind of fun to see things like that. They were at different weight classes. Evilov was a weight down. So he's come up for the looks like and going for 3 organization championships here.
Can't wait for that.
That's going to be a banger there. We'll definitely have to highlight that when that gets a little bit closer. But yeah, yes. Nate's fun to watch, man. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him get in there.
All right, man. So anything else before you want to get up out of here?
I think that's it.
All right, man.
Good.
All right, next week we're gonna have I forgot who Dalton. Dalton Lowe's gonna be up on here next week. So please, everybody, tune in for that. He's gonna be making his debut fighting. He's actually 17 years old, a senior in high school. This is gonna be a fun interview. I can't wait for this one. So please tune in to that one. All right, so that does it for us tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, remember the first rule of AYS Fight Club. Tell everybody about AYS Fight Club. All right, see ya.
See y'all next week.